Namaskaram friends, Vanakkam to you all and all the esteemed dignitaries who are sitting here, some of my senior leaders and the chair of this session and the Sri Nitin Gokhaleji who gave a very beautiful analysis of Operation Sindoor and the new strategy paradigm that we have put in place. And my topic for the day, we are focusing on strength of civilization and India's national security, Bharat's national security. And I'm going back at least 1,000 years before. The great thinker and philosopher Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji, if you are humble enough to read his life, the 15 volumes of his life, or at least the bare minimum if you are able to read at least the lectures he gave in Mumbai, April 22nd, 23rd, 24th and 25th in 1965, where he espoused over 4 days the concept of integral humanism. And in this, he gave a lot of emphasis to the word called Chitti. And Chitti he called the soul of the nation. In this present times, even when senior political leaders talks about North is different, South is different, West is different, East is different. And one of India's former Prime Minister in 2005, when he went to Oxford University to get his honorary degree, in the speech of former India's Prime Minister when he spoke, that the British have done a lot of great things to our country, a lot of beneficial things to our country, including trying to unite our country, trying to bring railways, trying to show us how to govern ourselves. When we see all kinds of things, sometimes we ourselves doubt, what is the idea of Bharat? Was Bharat always unified? What is the soul of this Bharat? The great philosophers and thinkers over the last 1,000 years, what did they stand for? This very beautifully in the word called Chitti, he emphasizes it is the soul, it is the cultural soul of Bharat. And Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji goes one step further. He uses a word called Virat after that. To invoke that spirit, the strength, the energy, the prana of this country where all of us feel sense of unified, all of us stand to protect this Chitti, he calls that as Virat. And Operation Sindoor is a very classic example of the Virat of this nation. Even some political parties till 1965, they wanted to secede from our country. And there is a chief minister of that political party ruling a state. He was forced to take a flag march procession with the army people during Operation Sindoor to say that no, all of us are standing for our Bharat, we are standing for our armed forces. So the whole of country in the spirit, all of us were together. That Virat, which Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji keeps emphasizing, which we have very vividly, our generation has very vividly seen during Operation Sindoor. And that is what I am trying to focus in the next 30 minutes, the civilizational strength. Friends, if Mahabharata chapter 9, Bhishma Parva, if you are able to read it, the 70 verses, very beautifully they say what is Bharat Varsha, what is our geography, what is our ethnography. When a question was asked, where is the battle happening? It is happening in Kurukshetra. Why it is happening? It is happening between Pandavas and Kauravas. It is happening in which land? It is happening in Bharat Varsha land. In this, the chapter 9, very evocatively they talk about 150 river systems, 220 different kingdoms, that is in Bharat Varsha, 30 bigger lakes, 80 mountain ranges, and 300 pilgrimage spots, all of which are connected in that Bharat Varsha. We are talking of Mahabharata, chapter 9, where we talk. If we go to Vishnu Purana, evidences vary. People say it is 400 BC it came. People say it came at 600 AD. Whatever time we take, if we take Vishnu Purana, there they try and define what Bharat is. It is to the north of sea, it is to the south of Himalayas. From north to south, if we measure the distance, it is going to be 1,000 yojanas. Each yojana is about 3.2 kilometer. Approximately that line should be 3,200 kilometer from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. If modern times we go and measure, it is exactly that distance. So Vishnu Purana clearly talks about Bharat Varsha, all of us are together. There are some civilizational markers, just like Operation Sindoor. Operation Sindoor, what are we protecting? The armed forces, our technological might, people standing up in the border. Why we are protecting the idea of Bharat? Not only are we protecting the idea of Bharat on May 7th, not only in that day we protect it. If we go back, we protected it years and years and years over the last 1,000 years. If you take just a civilizational marker, the Kashi temple alone, Vishwanath temple, just a civilizational marker, where all of our heart beats for Kashi. It doesn't matter in which part of Bharat we live. If we take only that Kashi as an example, 1194, Qutbuddin Aibak came and destroyed the temple. King Vishwarupa from Bengal Sena dynasty, he comes to Kashi. In 1212, he puts a victory pillar. He says this is victory pillar which will stand in Benaras because this land, it belongs to the god Lord Shiva who is here. 1250, when the temple was completely razed, a financier from Gujarat, a financier called Vastupal, he gives 1 crore rupee at that point of time to rebuild the temple. In 1276, Hoysala king, Veera Narasimha II in Karnataka. Where is Karnataka? Where is Kashi? In 1276, when there was a jizya tax for anybody going to Kashi to worship the Mahadeva, they have to pay a jizya tax. King Veera Narasimha II said, look, in the present day Karnataka, a village called Hebbala, all the revenue proceeds of Hebbala will be paid as jizya tax so that anybody from south of Bharat can go to Kashi and worship Lord Mahadeva. We will pay the tax. And we still talk about north-south. And some of the greatest kings who stood for Kashi, if you keep following that thing, from Tamil Nadu, Mutsaswami Dikshit there, Subramania Bharati who went there, Cholas who went there. Again, if you look at the Travancore kings, for Carnatic Kiritas about Kashi, they said, the Vijayanagar Rayas, who brought about exposition of Kashi. So this civilizational strength, the Chitti, which is the soul of this country, always came to the front whenever it needed to. And again, if you look at some of the greatest kings in our country over the last 1000 years, unfortunately the textbooks don't do justice for who they are. The Kerala king, the present day Kerala, Martanda Varma, taking on the Dutch in the high sea, 1771, Battle of Kolacham, defeating the Dutch because he didn't want Dutch to come inside at one end of our Bharat. If you look at the northern part, the Kashmir part, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, 632, when the caliphs were expanding, going all the way to Atlantic Sea one side, taking on some of the biggest empires, swallowing it, caliphs expanding at a rapid pace, but still our kings, Lalitaditya and other kings in that part, from 1732 till 1240, they kept the caliphs from not entering India. 500 years they stopped it at one part of the country. Rani Abbakka, one of the greatest Ranis in Karnataka, Ullal, took on the Portuguese and stopped them from entering. So all of these kings, if you go to Assam again, the great Ahom dynasty, taking on the mighty Aurangzeb's army and defeating it. So all parts of our Bharat at different points of time, they have always stood up to preserve the city, the soul, by showing Virata. If you come to the present day time, unfortunately we live in an age, a reality, where the political parties, some of the political leaders, they keep emphasizing that all of us are different. There is something called North, there is something called South. Some of the present day chief ministers, they say, no, in some states from South we contribute more tax, we give 1 rupee. But you give back 41 paise from the center. So how is this fair? Some state from the different parts of Bharat, they pay 1 rupee, they get 1 rupee 40 paise. How is it fair? And sometimes we also don't tend to read our history properly. The second 5-year plan, when India, Bharat wanted to have a balanced development, we got something called a freight equalization policy. We said FES means, at the point of time, people coming from West Bengal and the present day Bihar, including Jharkhand. 1950s, 92% of India's steel output was from 2 states, which is West Bengal and Bihar, 92%. 38% of engineering output was from 2 states, which is West Bengal and Bihar. But they felt South is not developing industrially. Okay, fine, let us bring freight equalization policy. Let Jharkhand give coal to South. Let the steel also go to South. But South said, no, how can I pay money? Because I'm lifting it from Jharkhand and carrying in train all the way to Tamil Nadu. For me, the cost of transportation would be more than the cost of the raw material itself. So the government of India brought this freight equalization policy, which was in existence from 1956 to 1991. They said, even if Chennai, if you are lifting coal from Jharkhand, you will pay the same cost of a person inside Jharkhand lifting the coal from Jharkhand. Well, what happened to the freight equalization policy? And somebody is looking at the economics. The engineering output, which was at 92%, at 30 years, it came down to 20%. Where in 1952, we had 2 steel plants. The next 17 steel plants came to western and the southern part of our country, and the central part. So we saw a very skewed balance of development. One part was growing fast, other part was not growing. Now suddenly we take this north and south to say, no, no, no. There is culturally one part of India is so rich, one part of India is culturally not so rich. That is why we are a superior civilization. No. Our civilizational strength, it was very clear. Be it our temples, because Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay very, very clearly espoused, man is not separated from his surrounding. We are a part of surrounding. We are a part of nature. We are a part of spiritual realm. We are a part of the wider world, and we are a part of the cosmos. So this theory where he interlinked the human being to a larger cosmos, the same theory we will see it in our country also, the civilizational strength, where no sacred place in our country can claim we are the only sacred place. That is why we have 51 Shakti Peetham. We have 12 Jyotirlinga, which is spread across our country, where every part is special, every part is sacred. And this civilizational unity, I believe, is our greatest security strength, more than the external borders where we stand with drones and the armies and some of the mightiest weapons. Because if our civilizational soul is preserved, the chitti is preserved, where all of us feel a sense of virat all the time, I don't think any external power can come and destroy us, can come and conquer us. Just like Operation Sindoor, where our security forces stood for us, all these kings, some of the greatest dynasties, they stood for a country. And if you look at Mahabharata, again chapter 9, the ethnography, not only do they talk about geography, they talk about ethnography also. The people who live here, the Janas, the Melachas and the Yavanas, where they talk about the western Punjab to Assam, and the tribes like Nishadas, Shabaras, Kiratas and Adiras, all the way to Kyrgyzstan. Of course, our geographical border has shrunk, but the spirit, but the chitti, the soul of our civilizational strength is intact. In the 8th century, from Kaladi Shankaracharya, he started from Kerala without even knowing where is he traveling, north, south, west and east. 3 times he traveled across Bharat. Established centers of relevance even now, all the way to the present day Pak-occupied Kashmir. So this, I particularly believe, youngsters like us, the young Karyakartas like us, we always have to preserve this, keep emphasizing on it, take this further, because this is our greatest civilizational strength. Now it is also time to project the civilizational strength outside, just like Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay said, because that is going to be a security umbrella. If you look at US, Nitin Gokhaleji, who actually wanted to be a sports writer, who wrote for sports, Engeji wanted to be a defense pilot, but somehow your calling became a security, one of India's foremost security thinker and analyst now. Now you understand America's security might, what is it? A blue water navy, bringing their fleets all across the world, putting one in Persian Gulf and showing power. But what is India's security architecture? Of course, we are not going to sending our ship to the Gulf of Mexico, the present day Gulf of America. Our greatest civilizational strength is who we are as a nation. Now, I see a representative from Amrita sitting in the front row. Now, some of our greatest spiritual gurus, Mata Amritanandamayi Amma, ashrams across the world, Isha, Jaggi Vasudevji, ashrams across the world, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, the Art of Living Foundation, who takes India's civilizational strength, negotiated a peaceful settlement in Colombia. Americans couldn't do it in 2016. Between the FARC rebels and the Colombian government, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar ji took it forward, brought a resolution in 2016 to a war in fashion, because he carries the spirit of Bharat strength there. And the Isha, presently they have launched an app, Miracle of Mind, I was following. In one day, it talks about a 7-minute meditation, which from our civilizational strength we are taking across the world. Because we know, as per the World Health Organization survey, 1 out of 8 people live in severe anxiety or depression. 3 people out of 10 people on the verge of getting into a mental problem in the next 10 years. When World Health Organization talks about it, a spiritual guru from India launches something called Miracle of Mind. Download an app, do meditation for 7 minutes. If you look at the downloads that happened in the first 1 hour, it is 1 million downloads, which beated ChatGPT's download in the first 1 hour. Again a spiritual guru from Bharat taking our civilizational strength outside. Mata Amardandamai Amma. Even 10,000 people, 20,000 people hugging everybody till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. Doing this without seeing the color, creed, race, caste, wherever the person comes. Same thing. There's in America, same thing is happening in Australia. Baba Ramdev, the yoga. The spiritual gurus who represent our civilizational ethos, taking the security architecture across the world. So everybody knows what is Bharat. Everybody knows who are the occupants of Bharat. Everybody knows what is the soul of Bharat. That also we should not forget. That is our security architecture. And the International Yoga Day, where the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken it across the world. And a lot of people might not know this. India is also a co-sponsorer for the International Meditation Day, which is on December 21. The International Meditation Day, again Bharat is a co-sponsor. Again we have taken it out. And the concept of life, which comes from our civilizational ethos, we have taken it out across the world. The International Solar Alliance, again the Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay's thought process. Man is not separate from nature, we are part of it. Again we have let the International Solar Alliance out. If you look at all of the security architecture, which will keep preserving our India's internal security for a long, long time to come. And more importantly, friends, if you give me some more time, Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay clearly kept emphasizing many a time about our language, about our culture, about our indigenous knowledge system. He said these three things from which the chitti, the soul of our nation flows. If we keep preserving it, so we need not fear anybody in the world. As a nation, we will always be ramrod straight. Now for the very first time, if you take about Tamil Nadu, the state from which I come, in the current academic year, the number of students who read English are more than the number of students who read Tamil. So English reading students are more than the Tamil reading students. If you look at the English medium school, if you open a textbook, what is the maximum Tamil they teach? They teach 25 Thirukural. They teach 10 Athichud. But Tamil, just like other great languages of this country, it's such a deep language where people don't even have access to some of the greatest epics that is written. Now, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi gives emphasis in the new education policy to say, learn your mother tongue till the class of 5, preferably to the class of 8. First time, we are unlocking lot of our own history to our own students. Same thing if you go to Karnataka, such a beautiful language, which has won the highest number of Sakitya Academy Awards. If you look at all the languages comparatively, very unfortunately, people want to fight on language at this point of time. Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay continuously emphasized, differences in languages is never a problem. We always have difference in language. Politics over the difference in language is a problem. Now, difference in language will always keep us together because we are Chitti, we are Virat. We always have differences in language. But right now, they want to talk about which language is superior, which language is inferior. Doesn't matter at this point of time. We are not in a race to say, my language is superior than your language. Every language has got some of the greatest epics. That is again our civilizational strength, but we fight over it. And it is also important, all these small things we take care, the Virat of this nation gets preserved so that internally we become together, we become homogeneous. We don't see a difference between a person who's in a different part of Bharat to a person who's in a different part of Bharat. Again, you see, in English, people don't understand how come in a country where people travel less. Ours is a one country where people travel less internally compared to the size of our country. If anybody is looking at the statistics of how much travel we do within the country, Uttar Pradesh tops the number of tourists in the last year who travel more. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, the top 10 states. But still survey says 60% of our countrymen haven't crossed their state. Like 60% of Tamil population haven't crossed Tamil Nadu. But how will a person from Tamil Nadu will appreciate the greatness of Ahom dynasty, will appreciate the greatness of Lalita Aditya, will appreciate the greatness of some of the greatest warrior kings of Punjab? For that, the Western people have tried to coin a word. They use a word called common unified spirit of cultural circulation. They don't understand how come in India where people travel less, where people don't even see other part of Bharat, but still all of them are united as a Bharatiyan. And this is very tough to appreciate and explain also, sir. And for this, the Western people are given an English word, common unified sphere of cultural circulation. They say there is a culture that is circulating across Bharat, which is not visible to an eye. And there is a cultural route which links 51 Shaktipita or a 12 Jyotirlinga. There is a circular route, cultural route, which people keep going. This is there for centuries. And this, of course, got disturbed during the East India Company's rule and during the British rule for about 400, 500 years. And that, I think, is important for us to preserve. And every time we get threatened, we get some of the greatest scholars. I personally believe Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay's thought, some of us have the privilege of reading his thinking, it is at the right time, at the right place. Imagine 1965, which is 60 years from now. Congress party coming, unbeatable power. Every election Congress winning. At that point of time, integral humanism as a concept, which we call the Hindu way of life. Swami Vivekananda ji traveled all the way to the shores of America to say, who are we as a country? Gathering everything, putting together as a concept of integral humanism, which you see 60 years later, the world is learning from it. The world always felt nature is separate, man is separate, you can destroy nature as much as possible to earn your livelihood. Now we are talking about global warming, all of us are one. Can we do a circular economy? Can we try and make sure that we preserve nature? Which in 1965, he put forward our theory of Bharat. Now I am very, very happy in 2025 when we look at it. His philosophy and treatise holds more relevance than any point of time in India's growth story, in Bharat's growth story. That too very specifically when Bipin Rawat ji, when he mentioned the 2.5 front war, he mentioned it very thoughtfully, 2019. He mentioned it very thoughtfully. India at some point of time is always fighting a 2-point front war. Nitin Gokhaleji said, of course there is a China, and there is China's proxy Pakistan. Even if you take Pakistan as one front, it is going to be 1 + 1, 2 front. He added another 0.5 front. Another 0.5 front, he mentioned the internal issues within our Bharat. The Naxalism at one point of time, which we are very confident by March 2026, Bharat will be a Naxal-free Bharat. Again, the northeastern part where Nitin Gokhaleji did not speak much today, but even he was kidnapped as a journalist, if I got my history right, where Nitin Gokhaleji himself was kidnapped as a journalist by a group. And the same group which kidnapped Nitin Gokhaleji long time back, last year 585 cadres of the same group surrendered in Tripura, in the northeast region. And northeast, for the very first time, we are seeing a peaceful northeast in the recent investment summit, attracting a humongous amount of investment. Some of the biggest industrial houses wants to open and create a lot of economic opportunity there. We are seeing that. First time we are seeing the internal problems that has plagued our country for a long, long time. First time we are seeing it is settling down. The so-called 0.5 front war, probably in our era, maybe in the next 20, 30, 40 years in our lifetime, we might see this 0.5 front, internal front might get dissipated. Just yesterday, our army chief in Singapore, in the Shangri-La dialogue, he mentioned a word. He said in the Operation Sindoor, 15% of our operational time went for battling fake news. In Nitin Gokhaleji's presentation, on the last line, he mentioned that we got to get better at managing narratives. I think it's a very, very important statement he mentioned. And yesterday, the army chief said 15% of our operational time. Imagine people in the border fighting, people thinking, taking real-time decisions. 15% of our time went in battling narratives. And that Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji, I think that is where his integral humanism does a greatest service. The spirit, the chitti, the virat, if the people of our country, we understand, we follow it, we inculcate it, we take it, I don't think we have a problem with fake narratives then. Because everybody wanted to set up something, everybody wanted to say, this is happening, that is happening, all of us are different. Just yesterday, I was very amazed to see an army chief mentioning that 15% of operational time getting into battling narratives. I think that is the way the warfare is going in the front also, sir. And more than that, my friends, I also want to take this opportunity to talk about two other pressing issues. Now, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya ji, for the security architecture, he clearly emphasized many a time that defense equipments, the technology always have to be internal. Now, if you look at some of the Indian private companies, if some of you read about them, the Gripens use some of India's technology. The Eurofighters, radar and Eurofighter is supplied by an Indian company. But for a long time, somehow we had this fascination that the Western countries are great, their military technologies are great. Nobody wants to touch an Indian company for a long time. When the present government, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, wanted to open up the defense, just look where we are. India's defense production, we have reached 1.46 lakh crore in financial year 2024-2025. When you compare this 10 years before, it is 214% rise. 214%. The Make in India initiative in defense alone, we have increased. If you look at the exports, again 10-year time frame, exports have increased 30-fold. We are at 24,000 crore. We have increased 30-fold in the last 10 years. And 2029, we have kept a very realistic defense target of 3 lakh crore production and 50,000 crore exports by 2029. In fact, when we conceptualized BrahMos, Brahmaputra and Moscow, the name itself signifies that Russia and India together. But how many of us know, in the initial BrahMos, it was 85-50. If you look at the BrahMos component, 85% of the BrahMos component was Russia, only 15% of BrahMos component was India. If you look at the present day manufacturing of BrahMos, it is 70-30. 70% of a BrahMos is India and 30% of the parts we use in a BrahMos is 30. So every single day, of course you all know the greatest spokesperson for our BrahMos missile is the Pakistan Prime Minister. So he has become our ambassador. And Azerbaijan, he said, oh, we wanted to launch after the prayers, like he mentioned the J.D. Vance statement. They wanted to launch it after their prayers against our country. But we went 1 or 2 hours before that, and he said BrahMos came and damaged a lot of our credibility. Now, after the Operation Sindoor, some of the news reports say 16 countries are expressing the interest to acquiring BrahMos from our country to their respective countries. So this is something awakening the nation's virat in the defense sector, where not only civilizational cohesion and might is giving us a sense of cohesion, but also we are preparing ourselves for the border region in terms of our own technology, where in the last 10 years, decisively we have gone ahead. Friends, I would like to end. Mahatma Gandhi, when he wrote his treatise Hindu Swaraj in 1909, which is again 120 years back. If anybody has the opportunity to read the Hindu Swaraj, he mentions 2-3 points very clearly. He says, Western civilization as a source of both material and spiritual decline. He believed India needed to reject Western models and embrace our own cultural and spiritual values. Geeta Ragasya, Balagangadhara Tilak at different points of time, everybody emphasized that we got to go local, we got to be Bharatiya in our spirit, and that is the only thing that will keep us alive. That is why when we see most of the major civilizations are fossilized now. Where is Mesopotamian civilization? Where is the great Egyptian civilization, the Roman civilization? It is all fossilized now. But our Bharatian civilization, despite seeing so much struggle over the last 400-500 years of discontinuity, at 2025, if you look at a thriving civilization compared to older civilizations along with us, we are still alive, still thriving only because we have Chitti inside, which Hindu Swaraj mentioned. Now the Make in India initiative, Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, putting our own country in the front in terms of an ideological thought process. When Modi ji, 2 countries are fighting, the Russia and Ukraine, where every country wants to take a position. When Modi ji's position, after 2 years, when the whole of the world is appreciating, that is the point, because that is Bharat's position over a long point of time. We never start a war. We never go and stand along with somebody when they are fighting a war. So the stand that we took now is getting resonance even in the United Nations Security Council now. So now the philosophy that we are talking, the integral humanism, and especially the Shyam Prasad Mukherjee Foundation, which has thought it fit to commemorate this by calling some of my fellow young Karyakartas from across our country and young minds along with our senior leaders sitting in this August hall, yesterday and today, listening fully where in each of the sphere the difference that we have created is in sync with the philosophy. Political parties can grow. Many political parties have grown across the world, in India. But many political parties have faded into oblivion. Within no matter, they have just gone into non-existence. But BJP as a political party, Jansangh as a political party previous to BJP, largest political party in terms of membership, but still thriving, attracting largest number of youngsters. It is only because of the philosophy we hold dear to us, which is integral humanism. I'm extremely delighted through this conference yesterday and today. A lot of young people are motivated to go and relook at what is integral humanism, even if they have a fake idea. But to read the 15 volumes of the life of Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji, bring youngsters, because Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji very clearly, 2-3 places he emphasized. people change political parties. He was totally aghast to see why do people change political parties. People join a political party, they change a political party. He said, when there's no principle, what is that political party going to do for Bharat? In one of his lectures, he mentions it. Because people who change political parties don't have a principle. They don't even know where they belong. In fact, he called the Congress party as a party where a mongoose and a snake both existing in a single frame. Because no ideology, no coherent vision, they don't know where to go. And that is where BJP as a party, we differentiate ourselves because we have a philosophy. And all the Karyakartas of our party, we own the philosophy, we belong to that philosophy, we take this philosophy forward. A political party can get defeated, but a philosophy never can get defeated. That is why, friends, today this wonderful meeting organized by the Shyam Prasad Mukherjee Foundation, where we brought all of us together, is a time for us to re-energize ourselves, to recommit ourselves, to read more about this wonderful philosophy and live by that philosophy. And I take this privilege and this honor of to thank a simple Karyakarta like me is invited to here to come and talk with respect to my tenure, 9-10 years as a police officer, the way I see it, combining my political responsibilities as a Karyakarta to the philosophy, to what our country is going through in terms of the security architecture. I take it as a great privilege, sir. Thank you so much for calling me, inviting me. And I say my sincere pranam to Nitin Gokhaleji and to the chair as well. Thank you so much. Bharat Mata Ki Jai.